guys, so in last week's video I talked about self-diagnosing and my stance on it, my opinions, whatnot. Also, don't mind the hair. I've had a rough couple days and I need to re-dye my hair still, so you know, we're just, it's weird right now. Anyway, I mentioned in that video that I was going to be doing another video kind of stemming off of that on the flawed mental health system, because along my research of looking up self-diagnosing things on Tumblr, I came across some opinions about the mental health system that I didn't necessarily agree with, and I thought I would call them out today. That sounds really bad. This video is going to be full of bias because I do want to go into the mental health field, so obviously I'm in full support of the system. However, I do agree that there are issues. It is not perfect, and it's especially not perfect for certain groups of people, so you know, I get where they're coming from, but you cannot, I think, put a whole opinion over the whole mental health system and say all doctors are like this, all therapists are like this. So that's my opinion. Which, you know, this channel's full of my own bias and my own opinion, so that's why you're here. That's why you watch my videos. I'm not here to be unbiased in this video anyway. Also, is it just me, or is there a lot of things about autism on Tumblr, which is great to bring awareness, and I do want to do a video including autism or completely on autism, but I see a lot of people justifying self-diagnosing autism, and I don't know if I fully agree with that. There was literally a post on how to diagnose yourself with autism, and it was like a bunch of questions, and one last main comment that I just want to say about the whole self-diagnosing community on Tumblr that I don't agree with is all the people under 18 diagnosing themselves with personality disorders. I think that's a little strange. It seems a lot of people who self-diagnose are underage, which is, I get their reasoning for it because they are underage. They have to really go with a parent or a guardian to professionals to do the whole process. And not all families are very supportive in the mental health field, so they probably will say, well, you're fine. But can I just state that you cannot have a personality disorder under the age of 18, so if you diagnose yourself with one, I can pretty much guarantee you don't have that until you're over 18. Like, you might. For instance, antisocial personality disorder begins as conduct disorder in teens, and before teens, it's oppositional defiant disorder. So there are stages to personality disorders sometimes, but you have to be over 18 to be diagnosed with an actual personality disorder. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that. Let's get into the Tumblr post that I saw. Okay, so there was a very lengthy post, and it said it came from a professional, and I mentioned this in the last video, so I'm going to address this one first before we get into the other ones. Very long post. They made a bunch of different points about why the mental health system is flawed and why you should self-diagnose and why it's probably a better route to self-diagnose. I have doubts that they're actually working in the field because of what they say. The first red flag for me is they say all mental illnesses are still being researched to this day. Well, yeah, cancer is too. That's an ongoing research. I don't get this. Comments saying, well, it's all being researched, so no one really knows everything. And it's true. Every mental illness varies from person to person, so it is true. No professional knows 100% about every single thing that they've learned in school. And of course it's still being researched to this day. It is a science. I mean, a soft science, but it is a science. Like, mental health is a science. It involves the brain. So of course we're going to continue our research. It'll never end. Like, we'll never know everything about the body, about the brain, about mental illnesses, okay? That's not a defense to say, well, you know, it's being researched anyway, so why don't you just do your own research and self-diagnose, because they, you know, don't really know everything about it anyway. Just because we have to continue our research on something does not mean we know nothing about that thing. I can say confidently that we know enough about mental health that we can have effective treatments, and that might require some trial and error, but effective nonetheless for a lot of people. They also said therapists are biased and only have a limited perception of what is going on inside your head. And that's true for the most part. We cannot take a brain scan and pinpoint exactly what is wrong in someone's head when they are experiencing mental illness. And yes, many psychologists have different techniques for how to figure out what is going on inside your head, and that is why I stated in the last video that is not a one-size-fits-all. Some therapists are still using traditional methods like Freud and stuff, which I don't understand, but that's just their technique. And obviously, if you don't agree with something like that, you would not go to them. You would find someone else. So yes, it does require trial and error, but that doesn't mean that they go to school for years and not understand what's going on. They are, of course, are not living inside your head, but they can understand to a certain extent of what is going on inside your head. Also, that is why they have to go through years of schooling and hours of training to be certified in order to even work. Like, it takes a lot of work to actually sit down with clients and begin helping them. Another thing I really want to point out to you guys is that school does not stop once someone graduates. When you go into the field of psychology, your education never ends until you retire. You're actually required to continue your education because it is an ongoing research topic. Just like because it's a science, it is continuously researched. There's always new theories coming out, and so you have to continue your education. I don't remember exactly how many hours you have to do per year to continue to get your licensure and your certification to help people, but there is a required amount of hours of education every single year that you have to go through, so it never ends. So although they might start with a limited perception, they are constantly learning and reading up on and being taught the new research that is coming out about these mental illnesses. And this one really bothers me as well, that they said that they will diagnose you with any and all disorders that you show even slight symptoms of, when I read another post that said they will never diagnose you. So which is it? It's okay that they have different opinions on how the mental health system works and maybe different experiences as well, but it seems very odd that one person would say that they would never, they are so scared to like diagnose people that they don't want to just throw out diagnoses, which is true. They don't just want to throw them out willy-nilly. And then this other person says that they do that, that they do throw around diagnoses just out their ass, just constantly just throwing them out there. And then if it's wrong, oh well, they just fix it and diagnose you with something else. My biggest problem with self-diagnosing, let me also touch on this again, is that and some of you pointed this out in the comments as well, so many disorders are comorbid with other disorders, and a lot of symptoms act like each other from other mental illnesses. So that's why it's so common to misdiagnose yourself when you're self-diagnosing, and one of the reasons why I'm against it. Okay, so here's the post I was talking about doctors in general. They say many doctors refuse to diagnose. A lot of these reasons are racism and sexism. I want to touch on this a little bit. I wouldn't call it blatant racism and blatant sexism because they are taking into consideration your race and your gender, because those are very important things when looking at mental health. There are certain things that are less common in others, so they will take those things into consideration. I don't think many doctors would say, oh no, you're a woman, you cannot be diagnosed with that ever, which a lot of them claim with autism. I don't understand that perspective. Personally, I don't have autism, so I don't know. I've never gone through that system as a female to get diagnosed with something like that, so I can't speak from experience, but I have really high doubts that every single doctor out there would never diagnose a girl with autism. That's just me defending the mental health system, and again, there's my bias, so you know, take that into consideration when you're listening to my opinion. Some traits, symptoms are internal and therefore not seen by doctors. That kind of goes back to they don't know what's going on inside your head. Of course they don't. Of course they can't read your mind. That's why there's an extensive process. Usually if they suspect something of serious nature, they will go into depth, like more in depth with you with questions and analyzing things like that. They also rule out health problems as well. They usually take some blood, do all that kind of stuff. Doctors diagnose based on behavior. People self-diagnose based on behavior. To me, that doesn't mean anything, but you know, that doesn't mean you know just as much as the professionals. I want to point out this post because they brought up a very good point. I'm just going to skip to the point, and it says, no doctor is qualified to diagnose themselves with a mental illness. That's what is very important, because a lot of people seem to think that, well, I know myself better than anyone, so I can self-diagnose better than a doctor can because I know what's going on. And based on research, sometimes months, years of research, they will come to a conclusion that they have something. However, not even doctors are able to do that, and we're actually told when we get into the psychology education program that you should not ever identify with any kind of disorder when you're studying it, because it's completely normal. When I took abnormal psychology, I thought I had everything. That's normal. It's normal to look at all these illnesses and symptoms and be like, oh my god, I have that. Completely normal. But you're told in the beginning that you cannot diagnose yourself. Like, you cannot and you should not diagnose people around you, because you are not licensed. Like, you have not gone through the hours to do that. No. So we're told that in the beginning that you cannot do that. So I don't know why the general public thinks that they can, even when the professionals who know a lot about it can't. This is another post. They had more points to it, but I'm just going to get to this one. It says, doctors are not all knowing. Doctors make mistakes. Doctors have prejudices. Doctors miss signs or misdiagnose. Many doctors do not know a lot about specific illnesses and disorders, or do not remember everything from those 10 plus years. Do you? So you're saying that you are more all-knowing, you don't make mistakes, you don't have prejudices, you don't miss signs, you can't misdiagnose yourself, and you know more about the doctor who know more than the doctor who went to school for 10 plus years. I don't get that defense. I don't get the defense. Well, doctors can misdiagnose, they don't know everything, they have biases and prejudices. I see a lot of people misdiagnosing themselves blatantly just because of their age, because you cannot have personality disorder under the age of 18. You can have those symptoms, of course. You cannot be diagnosed as it. So people putting it in their bios, that's the other thing that I have an issue with, is just putting it out there in their bios. They literally list like 10 plus mental illnesses in their bios, some of which cannot be diagnosed together, like, ever. So that blows my mind, honestly. I don't get this defense. I don't get the doctors are not all knowing. Neither are you. You may know more about what's going on than they do, but that doesn't mean that you know more about the illness than they do. I mentioned that in my last video. I just want to reiterate that just because they can have biases doesn't mean you can't. You know, and they're saying it like it's all doctors. No, if you find a doctor that has any of those issues, move on. Go to another doctor. There are great doctors out there. There are great psychologists and therapists out there that would be able to help you, and that doesn't fix the problem of it being expensive and a lengthy process of trying to find that doctor. But once you do, it's an amazing process. They continue on to say, I've had various mental health professionals admitting to me that they know nothing about autism and asking me to explain things. One place even turned me away from mental health care on the grounds that they did not know how to deal with autistic people. They probably didn't word it like that. They probably worded it with people with autism. We don't say schizophrenics anymore. We say people with schizophrenia because that is a better identifier. So I doubt they phrased it like that. But that can happen, because you know why? They have specifications. If someone is specified in depression in teens, they may not be the best people to help you with your autism, for instance. So they are allowed to do that. I'm allowed to turn away clients or refer them to other people. Hopefully you got a referral, because I think it's kind of rude to just turn them away and be like, I can't help you. Bye. And then you have to do your own research. Usually they'll be pretty helpful in finding you someone who can and give you a referral. So I can refer other people to other people that I feel like I won't be able to help. This one also blows my mind. People who oppose self-diagnosis are ironic because they're actively making people less likely to seek a professional diagnosis. I actually think we're telling you to go to get a professional diagnosis. I don't think we're discouraging you from doing that. Anyway, let me know your opinion on the mental health system, if you've had any negative experiences with it, positive experiences. Specifically highlight the positives, because I feel like we need some of that in this world, because I think a lot of people, especially on Tumblr, are highlighting the negatives and saying how bad it is, and I think that right there is discouraging people to seek professional help, because they're encouraging self-diagnosis, and I'm not discouraging that necessarily. I'm encouraging you to actually seek professional help if you think you actually have something. By these people, especially someone saying they're a professional, being in support of self-diagnosing, they're saying how bad the mental health world is, like the field of professionals. That's gonna turn people away from wanting to get professional help, not us saying that we don't like self-diagnosing. So there's my bias, there's my opinion, that's why you're here. Keep that in mind when you leave your comments, but I'd love to hear your experiences with the mental health field down below. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.